Nathan spent his childhood years in Broken Arrow while his parents attended Bible school. In 1994, the Dahm family moved to Eastern Europe, to Romania as missionaries in the former communist country. Upon graduating from high school, Nathan returned to Romania to serve as a missionary. He was involved there at starting a Bible school and then becoming instrumental in its sustenance or its ongoing operation. Then after moving back to the States as a constitutional conservative, Nathan draws heavily from his experience in the former communist and currently socialist country of Romania to inform the people of America of the ills, failures, and perils, and even the evils of socialism. And so I'll tell you, those that are in his district are blessed because he's not just a constitutional conservative, he is a genuine believer Christian in the biblical principles. And so it's been very encouraging to watch his career in the Senate, and he's represents us well. So put your hands together and let's welcome Nathan Dahm.
Thank you all. Good morning. God bless you all. Thank you for coming out. So Christina and I were actually at CPAC as well. We had the opportunity to be down there. It was phenomenal. Like Jesse was saying, in fact, one of the first people we ran into down there at CPAC was Jesse. We were walking through the exhibitors hall and everything, and kind of looked across the room, probably as far as we were apart from each other, like, hey, we know each other. So we connected with him. It was a wonderful conference, a lot of phenomenal speakers. Oklahoma was well represented there as well. Governor Stitt shared on a panel with conservative governors of what they are accomplishing in their states. We got to talk with several other just stalwarts, good Christians, people that are fighting for the Constitution. It was a phenomenal conference. So we were excited to do that. That was our first trip together outside of the honeymoon. So Christina and I got to do that. And so we're calling this our honeymoon tour because we're actually going back down to Dallas today for a Christian legislators conference that's taking place in Dallas over the next this weekend. So we're excited about that. Actually, we're leaving straight from here, so we might have to duck out a little bit early to drive down there. But I always like to point out when I'm at city elders, those of you that have heard me speak before here, I always like to point out Dr. Fanstill, because I see him back there and Roberta back there. If you don't know, not only are they godly people, he actually was my pediatrician, so he kept me alive, and so he gets some of the responsibility / blame for everything that I for me, but more importantly, he was also my wife's pediatrician. So he kept her alive so that we could be brought together. So thank you so much, Dr. Fanstill, for keeping her alive and well and taking such good care of her and her family too. So the Fanstills are wonderful people. And if you don't know, I think my in-laws have been here before. Christina's parents, they serve as missionaries as well. So we're both missionary kids. So we're just now in a different type of mission field because the governmental sphere is definitely a mission field. There's definitely a need for Christ to be exalted in government. Amen. And I know you all know that because you're here at City Elders. You all understand that. So I wanted to just kind of give an overview of some of what has taken place, not only in this legislative session, but in past legislative sessions, just so you understand. Because there's so many unfortunate missed opportunities that take place. Now, we do get some great victories. We have a lot of big battles, and sometimes we've had some losses. But one thing that somebody else said this, and it kind of resonated with me. Conservatives and even believers, in a lot of regards, have this mentality sometimes, this idea of that's not the hill to die on. How many of you have heard that or maybe even said it before, right? Like, hey, well, that's not our battle. That's not our fight. That's not the hill to die on. Well, Michael Jordan had a famous quote. He said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You lose 100% of the battles you don't fight." You lose 100% of the battles you don't fight. If that's not the hill to die on, but the other side is fighting for that hill, guess who's going to take that hill? And we're supposed to be the ones that are taking hills, that are advancing the kingdom, that are advancing the cause of liberty, right? I mean, that's our responsibility. But if we don't engage in those battles, if we don't fight those battles, we absolutely will lose those battles. Now, ultimately, we all know, we've read the end of the book, we all know that we win in the end, right? We win the war. But don't we want to have victories along the way, right? Don't we want more people to come to our side? Don't we want more people to see the truth and realize the truth and be set free by the truth as we go along in the process? So we have to engage in those battles. So I've been in the state Senate for 9 years now. Senator Jett is new on the Senate side. He had been in the House side for years before that, so he's seen a lot of battles as well. And he can give you a good perception or a good explanation of both the House and the Senate at the state legislative level. I've only been on the Senate side, but I've been there for 9 years. And in my 9 years there, I've become known as the fighter. As if nobody else will take up the cause, go to Nathan, because Nathan will. And because I have that mentality of, if we don't engage in that battle, if we don't fight on that hill, we will lose. Now, I've fought a lot of battles that I've lost, that I've engaged in, but when you think about that phrase, that's not the hill to die on, I haven't died on any of those hills, okay? Politically or otherwise. Now, I've spent a lot of political capital. I've fought those battles that everybody said couldn't be won. And yeah, I've suffered because of it, but it's nothing compared to what others have suffered. I mean, look at what Jesus suffered for us. Look at what the Apostle Paul suffered through, so this suffering is temporal, so we have to get out of our mind this idea of, well, we can't suffer because, what if somebody will say something about us, something negative? I'll give you an example. Senator Jett and I both filed bills this year to prohibit critical race theory, okay? Our bills were more expansive and more all-encompassing than what eventually passed. And we are very thankful that we got 1775 passed. There was a lot of miracles that took place to be able to get that even all the way through. But we both filed bills to ban critical race theory, okay? If you remember, President Trump did it through an executive order. It was gaining momentum, especially this legislative session. But when we filed the bills, it wasn't the conversation. It wasn't the topic that everybody knew about. Well, we went to the chairman of the committees that the bills were assigned to, Republican chairman in Republican legislature with supermajorities, and the chairman told us, not going to hear that bill. You know why? Because they were concerned that they were going to be called a racist. If I hear that bill, I will be called a racist. Now, I don't know where they've been for the last 4 years, but we are constantly being called racists for the mere fact of supporting President Trump, or for flying the Betsy Ross flag, or the Don't Tread on Me Gadsden flag, or for any other numerous reasons. Everything in this day and age is considered racist. They will call you a racist no matter what you do. If you don't know who Dr. James Taylor is, he just spoke at a lunch meeting that we were at on Tuesday. There's actually an article out there that says the way that white people walk down the street is racist. Everything is racist. You're going to be called a racist no matter what. But these Republican committee chairmen were too concerned to hear the bills because they said, I'll be called a racist. That's a battle, a hill that they weren't willing to fight on. Now, thankfully, later in the session, Senator Bullard had a different bill, House Bill 1775, that had different language in it, that we were able to take 1775, remove the existing language, put the bill to ban critical race theory language into it. One of those chairmen begrudgingly changed his mind, 6 weeks later, 7 weeks later, he finally said, okay, I'll go ahead and let Senator Bullard do this because pressure had been mounting. And so he finally decided to let it happen. And so he was not willing, he ended up being willing, but he didn't really want to do it. And so then it got passed through committee. But then it was on the Senate floor. One night, we were working late. It's rare in the Senate that we do that, but we were working late. And the bill was scheduled to be heard, and the floor leader of the Senate took the bill off of the agenda. Up on the screen, up on the monitor, it lists the next 4 bills. That bill was up there. Instead, she decided to jump ahead to the very last item on the agenda and skip that bill. Now, I'm not taking credit for this, but I went to the pro tem of the Senate and I said, hey, we're supposed to be working late tonight. You all brought in dinner so we could work late. We took an hour break, or plus an hour, I think it was an hour and 15-minute break to eat dinner, to come back. We've been here for 15 minutes, and now she's going to cut it off and we're not going to hear this critical race theory bill? And tomorrow's the deadline. Tomorrow's our last chance. If we don't hear it tonight, it's not going to be heard. To his credit, he went to her and he said, no, we're here. We need to hear everything on the agenda. And we were able to hear Senate Bill 1775. It took, an hour and a half of debate and and questions and all that, and it got passed. But this is in a Republican supermajority legislature, and we hear things like this all the time. And so I want you to understand the lack of fortitude by some of these Republicans. And here's the thing. Like, I understand you're a chairman. I've been a chairman of a committee. And I understand that you might get some backlash. But you ran for office. Did you really think you were never going to have any backlash? Like, what were you thinking? Did you think it was just going to be a title and a position and, nothing more? Like, you're going to get some backlash. You're not going to be able to appease everyone, for sure. And here's the thing. If it's my bill and it has my name on it, throw me under the bus. Say, you know what? Yeah, I disagree with the bill, but Senator Dahm wanted it to be heard, so I gave him the opportunity to hear it. That's all you have to tell people that are upset with you about it. I'm fine with that. Throw me in. I'll fight the battle that you won't, you coward. It's not that complicated. But then they'll say, oh, well, but, my name's attached to it because as the chairman, I agreed to hear the bill. Or as the floor leader, I agreed to hear the bill on the floor, or whatever the case might be. Well, so let me give you another example. How many of you have heard about here in Oklahoma, Senate Bill 2, SB 2, the Save Women's Sports Act? You might have heard it referred to that. Have you heard that? Okay. Senate Bill 2. Again, we had bills this was Senator Bergstrom's bill, Senate Bill 2, Save Women's Sports Act. It came over from the House side, and the Senate has to vote on one amendment, okay, to accept it. Then it goes to the governor to be signed. That bill was eligible to be heard on the Senate floor for a month and a half. A month and a half we could have heard that bill, and Senate leadership refused to let the bill be heard. Now, I'm not breaking confidence because the floor leader of the Senate in a public meeting after session was asked why wasn't Senate Bill 2 heard. And her response was, well, this bill is perceived as an anti-transgender bill. So we just have to wait and give it time so that perceptions could change. And then when it's no longer perceived that way, then we can hear the bill. Do we work based on other people's perceptions? Do we do what's right because other people think it's wrong? It doesn't matter what other people's perceptions are. And and just speaking politically, okay? Because most of the people up there are politicians. You're in Oklahoma as a Republican. Do you really think you're going to lose an election because you are labeled you're labeled as an anti-transgender? You really think you're going to lose an election because of that? I'm sorry, but the transgender vote is not great anywhere in the country. They make up less than 1% of the population. They're not going to be able to defeat you in an election if that's your actual concern is an election. That was just an excuse that was given. The Save Women's Sports Act is very simple, common sense. It says if you're a woman, biological female, you compete in biological female sports. If you're a male, biologically male, you compete in biological male sports. Or if a school district or a university wants to, they can have a co-ed team where anyone can participate. How much common sense and simplicity? How easy is that? That should be an easy yes vote. Absolutely. Biological women and biological women's sports, biological men and biological men's sports. Co-ed teams for whoever wants to compete in that, whether they consider themselves transgender or not. Why not just have co-ed teams, even if somebody wants to? It doesn't mean you have to be transgender. It's not anti-transgender. This is to protect women's sports. It should be very simple. But again, we see Senate leadership stopping this for over a month and a half, refusing to let the bill be heard and voted on. Thankfully, it's still eligible for next year, but that means we have to wait until next February. I'm sorry, but we should be moving on these things right now. One other thing that I've heard, and Jesse will attest to this, we heard it a lot at CPAC, and my wife Christina will tell you all, I've been saying this for a long time. It's great that we have been at least engaging in some of these battles on the defensive. But we actually have to engage and we have to go on the offensive. Okay? Right? We're finally standing up and saying, okay, we're not going to let you take that hill from us. But what we need to be saying is, we're going to take that hill back from you. Right? We need to go on the offensive. It's not enough that we're just saying, you know what? We're no longer going to let you teach your racist values under the guise of anti-racism and call it critical race theory. We're going to stop you from teaching your values. We need to go on the offensive, and we need to say, you know what? You're going to start teaching the right values in our schools. So one example of this is I have a bill. This concept came up during session, so I was trying to take one of my existing bills, take out the language, and put in this new language, like what we did with critical race theory on House Bill 1775. Unfortunately, again, the chairman wouldn't hear it. So I'm going to file it as a new bill. It'll have a bill number. It doesn't right now because it was just a concept I was trying to put into a previous bill. It'll have a new bill for next year. How many of you are familiar with Hillsdale College? Phenomenal group, right? They have great teaching on the Constitution and many other things, but their Constitution courses are phenomenal. I was contacted by somebody from Hobby Lobby, and they said, hey, I have this idea. They said, I have some connections with Hillsdale. Can you work with me on this? And I started talking with them, said, love the idea, absolutely. We talked with Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College has agreed for a 5-year period to offer their Constitution courses free of charge to every high schooler in the state of Oklahoma. So, free of charge to the state, no cost to the state. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it as a pilot program. Say, okay, for 4 or 5 years, we're going to offer this free. We're still looking at how we can make it a required course for the students. And then we'll have to see eventually, yes, we might have to pay for it or whatever, but that's an investment worth paying for. If we're going to be spending money on education, we should be spending money on them getting educated in the Constitution, right? So that's an example of something that we can do going on the offensive and saying, okay, we've stopped you from teaching your values of racism, but we're going to require that you actually teach values, teach truth, teach the Constitution. So there's things like that that we can go on the offensive with. Let me give you another example here, and then I'll start wrapping up because I'm excited to hear Senator Jett. And I can tell you that there is a growing movement of conservatives. More conservatives got elected this last cycle, so there is more and more of us. We are coordinating and working together more than we ever have before in my 9 years up there, so I'm very excited for what the future holds. I'm very, very thrilled. Senator Jett is one of those leaders of this new group, and I'm very excited about that. But on the state house side, they are limited to only being able to file 8 bills per session. On the Senate side, we don't have a limit. We can file as many bills as we want, okay? Now, this last year, I think I filed the most of anyone. I've always been like pretty close to the most, and every year I filed more and more bills. My first year up at the Capitol, I filed 12 bills, okay? I was like, well, you know, I'm new, but I talked to several people. I know Amanda Teagarden helped me with several of them. And so I filed 12 bills. One of them was heard in committee on the Senate side. In fact, Amanda came up and she offered testimony and worked with me on it. But it was a bill to eliminate some of the Obamacare exchange stuff that was taking place, the information exchanges, all those things. And the bill failed in committee because the Republicans voted against it. So I filed 12 bills, got one heard in committee, it got voted down, and I was done. Now, I had some bills come over from the House that I was the Senate author on, but for a few weeks, I didn't have anything to be working on, right? So the next year, I filed twice as many. I filed 24 bills and got a few of them through, but most of them weren't heard. The next year, I decided to increase that and did 36 bills. So every year, I add about a dozen bills, okay? So I'm not up to 100 yet, but I'm close to it. My wife will tell you I was working on over 100 bills this last year, but I only filed like 70-something of them, okay? So 70-something bills filed. Got 26 of them through Senate committees, okay? So that's great. Got almost 20 of them off the Senate floor, okay? So out of 80, almost 20 off the Senate floor, and then over to the House, got 10 of those through House committee, and then of those 10, 4 of them actually got passed through the House onto the governor. So that's great, because there were some good bills, but you're talking 4 out of almost 80. That's like 5%, right? Because most of these bills are dealing with protecting people's rights. They're not something that the lobbyists or the agency wants, so they don't have a lobbyist out there talking to everybody else. I'm having to work on it myself or get people like you out there to support the bills. So that's why I file so many bills, because there's so many of these battles. But now with all these conservatives coming in, we're going to be spreading that out. There's more of us to be able to work on that, to be able to push forth these things. So we are working together, we are strategizing, and we believe that we will be able to get a whole lot more through this next year. All of those bills are still eligible for next year as well, so they're still active measures. And so let me close with this, because you all know that, yes, I'm a strong constitutionalist, but I love the Declaration of Independence as well. It's a beautiful document. We just celebrated Independence Day, not 4th of July. England has a 4th of July. Canada has a 4th of July. Every country has a 4th of July, just like they have a 5th of July and a 3rd of July. We were celebrating Independence Day, right? And that's what the Declaration of Independence is about. And we all know that the Declaration of Independence says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? We're endowed by our Creator with certain rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Show of hands if you've heard that before. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, just making sure we're all on the same page. All right, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the very next phrase in the Declaration of Independence says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted. Why are governments instituted? To secure these rights. That is the primary focus of government. Whether it's Washington, D.C., whether it's the state capitol, whether it's your city council, your school board, that is the proper core main function of government. It's not roads and bridges. It's not healthcare. It's not education. It's not all these other things. Those can be functions of government, but the core, the base, the foundation of government is to secure our rights. So that's what I focus on. That's what I'm going to continue to do. That's what I'm going to keep fighting for you all with, is how do we secure our rights. So thank you all for your support. Like I said, we might have to duck out a little bit early. We're going to try to stay till the end. But if I can help any of you with anything at any time, please let me know. I don't look at it as I just serve my district. I look at it as I serve the people of Oklahoma, anyone I can. Thank you all. God bless you. Jesse?